Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. A few years ago, you couldn't throw a stone without hitting a stand of hemp. Curious consumers and speculators alike spurred on growers. Before long, supply overtook demand, and hemp went from hot to not. Now, as markets have settled and Vermont's hemp industry adjusts to new rules and regulations, interest in how hemp can grow in Vermont's working landscape is beginning to bloom once again. Keith Silva visited a hemp extraction business that's working with UVM Extension to get the word out about how growers can safely and sustainably bring hemp to full flower in the Green Mountains.
There's some cutting-edge chemistry happening at Kria Botanicals in South Burlington.
This is where the magic happens.
Kria Botanicals is a hemp extraction and co-manufacturing facility. Daniel Chang is the Chief Operations Officer.
We're a contract manufacturer and we do not have a retail brand of our own. You come to us with a product idea, we develop it with you, we source everything, package it, and ship it off to you ready for retail. We are a USDA organic certified lab. We were the first one in Vermont and the first in the Northeast. And what that means is that we had eyes on us. We were being audited by a third-party agency. They came in, they look at our records, they look at how we keep our ingredients, how we store things, how we clean things, and they've given us their stamp of approval.
There's anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 pounds of hemp in an acre. It takes roughly 100 pounds of hemp to make 1 gallon of unprocessed oil. Using this example, 1,000 pounds of hemp equates to 10.5 gallons of oil. Extractors like Kria Botanicals distill that unprocessed oil down even further to be used in food and medicine for people and pets, or into health and beauty products.
The barrier to entry to extraction is considerable. The equipment is specified, it's quite expensive. A lot of it is chemistry equipment, and the employees that we employ to run this equipment, these aren't $15 an hour jobs. These are salaried employees with degrees in science, advanced degrees, some of them. So it's a different level up than just doing this in your basement or an artisan level.
Kria Botanicals sources nearly 100% of their hemp from organic growers in Vermont.
And at a certain temperature,
they're working with UVM Extension to educate growers about the important role extraction plays in the production of hemp products.
Heather Darby at UVM Extension has been a wonderful resource for Vermont hemp growers. She's been in this since the very beginning. Working with the university extension program has allowed us to do more outreach. It's given us more exposure to show who we are and how important it is to operate a legitimate business in this space and the benefits of doing so.
This project is funded by a grant from the USDA Northeast Risk Management Education Program to train farmers about managing the marketing, legal, and safety risk for hemp products. Susie Hodgson is a sustainable agriculture specialist with UVM Extension.
Hemp itself is a kind of hungry plant, so it will kind of soak up and eat up everything. So if your hemp plant happens to contain like heavy metals and you didn't test for that or didn't know that and decided to make your own extract, that would be concentrated in that, say, tincture you wanted to make. So it's really important that the hemp gets tested when it's grown, gets tested at the lab, gets tested as a product all along the way. There's a lot of chemistry, and you may be a great farmer, but are you really a chemist? Have you distilled things before? Have you worked with that sort of equipment? At the end of the day, you want to be able to sell your product, and you want the customer to have confidence in that product.
Transparent with the
Chang co-founded Kria Botanicals with Bill Lofi. One of their guiding principles is to be transparent in all facets of their business. Given its association with marijuana, the hemp industry often struggles with legitimacy. Not to mention, the regulation of hemp-based products like CBD trails behind the market.
Maybe the original sin of this whole industry is the truth in labeling. There is no truth in labeling. So when you go out in the market and you buy a bottle of CBD at your local gas station, chances are it's nothing close to what's on the label. And potential that there are harmful chemicals or heavy metals or things in that because it's not being properly tested, because the regulation has just lagged in a market that has grown globally so quickly. Speaking for Kria Botanicals, before anything comes into our laboratory, the hemp, the raw material, it's tested for potency, for microbial contamination, for heavy metals, pesticides, mycotoxins, all sorts, a whole pantheon of tests to make sure that it's clean. The oil that we extract, we test for all of those same things to make sure nothing passed through to the oil. Once the oil passes quality, it can go to production and we'll formulate, say, a tincture or a gummy bear or whatever out of that oil.
Because hemp oil is used in food and as medicine, it needs to follow strict food safety guidelines.
It's important to know that 1 dropper full is 1 dropper full, not 5 dropper fulls, because if you give it to your child or your dog or your grandma, you want to have the intended effect. We need to be upfront with testing, with analytics, with regulation, with fire safety, with employee training. Everything has to be on point like any other legitimate manufacturing business, especially when you're talking about food or dietary supplements or medicine. Hemp actually gets run
Working
twice.
with UVM Extension to educate farmers and consumers about food safety is one way to make sure this budding industry continues to grow. In South Burlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith. And joining me now to expand the discussion about Vermont hemp is Stephanie Smith. She is the Assistant Director of Public Health and Agricultural Resource Management with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Welcome so much, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with a few facts. How many growers were registered to grow hemp, and how many acres of hemp were grown in Vermont in 2021, last year?
Yeah, so in 2021, we had a total of 440 registrants in total. That included both growers and processors. About 279 were registered to grow, and that resulted in 791 acres of hemp registered in the state of Vermont for cultivation. Of those 279, 273 were growing specifically for cannabinoid production or to produce CBD.
Okay. And by law, hemp growers and producers are required to register with the Agency of Agriculture. There are some recent changes to those rules and regulations. What has changed?
So this is the first year that the state of Vermont is going to operate under a USDA-approved hemp production plan. This USDA-approved hemp production plan has to comply with federal rules. And as complying with those federal rules, the total THC requirement cannot exceed 0.3% in those crops that are grown in the state of Vermont. There are also some other additional changes that growers will experience this year, in addition to this really big one.
Right. Okay. And so how does that adoption of federal guidelines affect the consumers or affect consumer protection?
So the federal guidelines or the federal law, it addresses that potency requirement for crops. That potency requirement also transitions into a product. So products must also meet that 0.3 total THC concentration. In addition to federal law, Vermont's hemp program and Vermont state law allows the agency to regulate for consumer protection. And this includes, not only the growing of hemp, but also the processing of hemp, the testing of hemp and hemp concentrates, as well as marketing of hemp and hemp products.
Okay, so a lot more protections there. And as we heard in the video, the labeling of hemp products like CBD has almost gone unregulated. How do these changes impact labeling, for example?
Yes, so in the state of Vermont, we require if your product has a label guarantee on that product, that it must be tested to meet that label guarantee, and that must be related to a analysis that shows that product, based on packaging, meets that label guarantee, in addition to testing for contaminants and the THC concentration.
So it's important for people to find out about a company like we saw in the video.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Those companies that are doing that third-party labeling are not that third-party labeling, that third-party processing and creating of
testing.
products and working and testing and working with the companies that are making the products, it is important to work with somebody that's knowledgeable of the rules.
Right. And how will consumers know the CBD that they're buying reflects these changes?
Well, they'll be able to tell from the label. In the state of Vermont, you'll be able to see, it'll be listed as a hemp product. It'll list information about whether or not it contains THC. It'll also have, if it has a guarantee, it'll include the serving size and the measurement in milligrams for that cannabinoid. So there's lots of transparency that can be found on the label.
Okay. And what about products that are produced outside the state of Vermont? Do retailers have to follow similar rules on labeling?
Well, so the Agency of Agriculture doesn't regulate regulate products that are shipped into the state of Vermont for sale on retail shelves. So if you do buy a product and you buy one that's manufactured in the state of Vermont, know that those labeling requirements do exist, and you can be assured that that the product that you're buying has met certain testing and labeling standards and contaminant testing requirements.
So is there a stamp of approval, or does it say Vermont Ag on it? How do people make sure that it's gone through this process?
There isn't a assurance program currently, like a label or a stamp of approval. But certainly, if folks are interested, they can contact the agency if they want to learn more, as well as those producers that need some additional assistance. We're willing to help.
Okay, well, fantastic. Stephanie, thank you so much for kind of clarifying this. It's complicated, what's going on with hemp and these new regulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
And for more information about growing and processing hemp in Vermont, registration is open for the 2022 Industrial Hemp Conference. And this event will be held virtually over 2 days, March 15th and 16th. The information is available at go.uvm.edu/conferences. And of course, as Stephanie mentioned, you can also go to her department. So thank you so much. That's our show for today. Thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.